Fletch, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, man. Well, let's dive in.
Let's do it. So I'm looking forward to getting into your life as an artist, as an author, singer, songwriter. Let's begin with this. 6 years ago, the artistic world got turned on its ear with COVID. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you approach things today?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not really in the music business anymore. I mean, I am to the extent that I do produce records. I'm producing a Black gospel record, is this guy's third record now, and people you'll never hear of, but people who like what I do and do a lot of arranging, everything from rhythm section stuff to large orchestral projects. But they're all under the radar, kind of like what you do to make money. But the music business, it's a different animal now, and I don't really have a need for it, and I don't really fit in a niche that will easily be identifiable, which is fine. So COVID came and went, and my wife and I just kind of hunkered down here. And right before then, in 2019, we started. I mean, if I would have to characterize what I do, it's kind of theocentric jazz. I like to talk about God and what He's doing in my life, and makes an easy segue into music because God likes us to sing about Him a lot, and worship Him and praise Him. So it's a very easy step into that realm for me, and has been for over 50 years. But so I mean, it hindered. We were starting to travel in 2019 quite a bit in September. We went on a 9 week. And my wife likes to say 9 weeks and 2 days. Don't forget those 2 days, okay? Don't ever do that again. But a kind of a music mission trip, doing a lot of street ministry and playing with the band for the first 6 weeks in Turkey, Egypt, and Albania. Mostly Muslim countries, which we love to go to. We love Muslims. They love jazz. They love music.
Yeah.
I first went there in the 90s, 4 years in a row. And even back then, they had four music TV stations like MTV blasting Turkish music. Everything from, jazz. I had an incredible jazz group from Ankara in Houston, where we lived at the time in 1996, to large orchestras full of like 20 ouds playing along, with this orchestra. So they love music. It's even in the Quran, there's not a whole lot about music, and they sort of downplay the arts to a great extent. But the people love music; they can't get enough of it. So we did that for 6 weeks. Then we went to Lagos, Nigeria, for a week to play at a church to do a jazz concert and a church service. And I said, "Well, am I supposed to play my jazz in church?" He says, "You have to. You must." So I had two bands. The Saturday night band was kind of the A team, unbelievable players. And both bands memorized my music, which is not necessarily easy. And then the last 2 weeks were spent in Pretoria, South Africa, which we've been back to South Africa. Last November was our sixth trip. We're going back in November again next year or this year for our seventh trip to South Africa. So we've been busy. We took about a year and a half off there
Yeah.
in between, and 2020 and into 2021, but then started hitting it hard in 2022 again. So
That's wonderful. So, did you grow up in Austin?
no, I grew up in Seattle, actually,
Okay.
in Seattle, Washington, back in the 60s. A child of the 50s and 60s in Seattle, which was a wonderful place to be for music, you know.
Yeah.
And public schools, they had great music programs in Seattle. My junior high and senior high band instructor was a jazz alto player. And from seventh grade on, for 6 years, we had a big band. And my last 2 years of high school, Doc Severinsen stayed at my house. When the Tonight Show was in New York, he would travel maybe every 3 months. He'd do two high schools in one week. And so he stayed with us for like 2 or 3 days. hung out and rehearsed with us, and I got to ask him stupid questions, what's Miles Davis like? He's an asshole. And but he was a very engaging guy. Got to hear him practice and warm up. It was incredible. He played, he practiced and played 7 hours every day. So if he had a 4 hour dance gig when he was a teenager, he'd practice 3 hours or vice versa. So he was a practice hog. And so guys like that are kind of what we need to no excuses. It's like you sound bad because you're not practicing. You need to practice more. Okay. So he was a wonderful guy and still is. He's still alive.
Yeah.
Not, I guess not playing. I haven't been in touch with him in decades, but he's 98,
Yeah.
but he quit playing a couple of years ago, I heard. But I'm afraid if I quit practicing, he's gonna come knock on my front door or something.
He's gonna find you.
Yeah, he will find me, and he has a particular set of skills and he'll rain on me. But I tell people he literally knows every trumpet player in the world. Probably not literally, but I mean he's just a great guy, and
Yeah.
a great encourager. But so I had a charmed life growing up. There were a bunch of clubs in Seattle. You could go you could go sit in if you were bold enough to, and they let you sit in, but guys might cut you off if you're not making it. If you're kind of trying to play and not really up to stuff. But they let you play and you cut your teeth on that kind of stuff. And so it's wonderful. If you're bold enough, you go in there as a high school player. And I did go, the band leader, Stan Kenton, started to do these Stan Kenton clinics
Yeah.
in the early 60s on the West Coast.
Hmm.
And I think when I was 14 and 15, I went to two of them. And, he brought his whole band.
Yeah.
So it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they were there for like 4 or 5 days.
Wow.
And, and then you had all these cats from the West Coast who were great players, but they wanted to and uh, Donald Byrd, the jazz trumpet player, he was our trumpet instructor. Okay. And so he spent about we had sectionals with him from our little group of 4 or 5 guys. We had music and we had a big band and he would be railing against the man. The man he's stealing all my money. The man is the MFer. He's stealing all my money. Well, taxes. And of course, he drove his Mercedes there to Lake Tahoe, where we had to the Boy Scout camp where I think half the people there got ptomaine from Boy Scout camp. But it was just, I tell people I really should be a much better trumpet player than I am because I had a charmed life as a kid growing up with all these influences and then finally went to University of North Texas right after that because Doc and all the guys at the Kenton clinics were saying you need to go to North Texas.
Yeah.
In the 1965. I think Berkeley was getting going, but it was a great place to be in 65 because the Vietnam War was going on and just kind of heating up. But if you were in college, you were exempt from the draft.
Hmm.
So we had all these players there that had no business being there, but they were there and, they were my competition. I thought I was a hotshot guy from Seattle, but I was 18 and it was scary, but it was great because you just have to decide, are you going to play or not? Are you going to be a player? You want to be a player. And I had a great classical trumpet player as my teacher when I was there that helped sort of build me up in the way I should have been built up for my chops and the classical tradition, which is wonderful. And I still love classical music and playing with orchestras when I can. So it was a great 4 years. And of course, played with some great guys, Lou Marini, Tom Malone, a guy named Bruce Fowler, who became Hans Zimmer's orchestrator.
Yeah.
And of course, his brothers. are all famous musicians. Walt, great jazz trumpet player, and his dad was a great jazz educator. So they were in this thing called the 1 o'clock lab band,
Yeah.
which is still, it still amazes me that they pour a lot of money into the music school there in North Texas, and they have 9 percussion teachers. So somehow they've been able to not only keep that thing going, but just bringing in wonderful talent. Um, I don't know where these guys go after they graduate. It's, I'm praying that they'll find great opportunities around the world. The last few years we've been in Cape Town, in South Africa. We've been in Cape Town, and at their university is a guy from North Texas who teaches the jazz program there. I think he's moved on somewhere, but they have a fantastic jazz program at the University of Cape Town. And
Yeah.
man, I have a 28-piece orchestra when I go there every year, and I can write anything, and these guys can play it. So it's just fun to see the legacy of North Texas being propagated around the world, and it was certainly wonderful for me there. And so I get a degree, barely. As I tell people, I graduated with a degree and a black mark in my transcript from getting busted on campus. So it's kind of a badge now of honor, but not really. And I tell people I went to Yale for about 10 minutes with a graduate fellowship because I was not ready for the graduate world. But God knows what I needed to go through, and that was part of my education. The whole drug thing. It was happening, and I guess still is happening. I've been luckily out of it since 1971 when I became a Christian, and God he cleaned me up, and he
Yeah.
knew what I needed, to save my life. And my wife and I were married about a year and a half, and we've been married now. It'll be in April 56 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Congratulations.
know, man.
That's right on.
There are miracles.
Yeah. So was it always going to be music for you? Is that always your dream?
Uh, when I was 10, okay, here's the genesis of this whole thing. When I was 10 in 1956 or 57, you can figure out how old I am now. They brought you in a room in public school and they had all these instruments there, you know, horn, strings, percussion, woodwinds, and I took a beeline to the trumpet. Up to that point, my brother was a piano player, classical piano. So my mom made me take some lessons, but I was not a very good piano student. So when I got my trumpet, I just fell in love with it, though. I'd play records by guys like Harry James, Jonah Jones, of course, Miles, Dizzy. At 10 years old, I loved jazz. I hated the Beatles, when they came on in 62. I thought, this is stupid.
Yeah.
But I loved Beethoven, I loved Stravinsky. I love jazz. John Coltrane is like, what in the world is this stuff? So I grew up on that and had a wonderful jazz education in Seattle. It was just a great place. I don't know if you've ever had Jay Thomas on your show from Seattle, but Jay is a great jazz musician in Seattle still, and was this phenom. When I was 17, he was 15. He was a sophomore. He could play circles around everybody in the band and jazz wise. It was just unreal. And now he plays tenor and flute and trumpet in Seattle, and I'm still in touch with him. So you need to have him on your show if you
Yeah.
never have.
I will. Thank you for the
Yeah,
tip. Yeah.
he's a cat. I'll put you in touch with him. But but that was a genesis, of
Yeah.
me just falling in love with trumpet. And because of my background in piano, I could read music a little bit and I adapted it to the instrument, that buzzing on a mouthpiece fairly quickly for some reason.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. After all of these years of being a musician, what did you like the best about it? What was it that got you up every day that pushed you to evolve and love what you were
Mm.
doing?
Well, it's still kind of the fellowship, the camaraderie with players. I mean, excuse me. just getting over the flu.
Yeah.
Uh, jam sessions in North Texas, I learned more in jam sessions than I did playing with the 1 o'clock, although I learned a heck of a lot with that band. It was just a monster band. Everybody in it had to be Gary Grant. I don't know if you know that name. The session player in LA, he died a couple years ago. But from the 70s, through the 2000 teens, he was the lead player on recording sessions in LA. So unbelievable player. Sal Marquez, also the guy that played on what was the Fabulous Baker Brothers, all those jazz solos
Yeah.
for the Dave Grusin record there. He was in the band. So there's just incredible. Ed Soph, an incredible
Yeah.
drummer, was you know it was a serious band. You had to keep your chops up,
Yeah.
but the camaraderie, the playing, still just the making of music with guys. It's just a lot of fun. There was a band in the '80s, Koinonia. I don't know if you've heard of that band with Abel Boreal, Alex Acuna, Justo Mario, Bill Maxwell, uh, uh, Hadley Hawkinsmith, who played with Neil Diamond for 35 years. Uh, those are the guys I became Christians with, all those guys, at least the Anglo guys. And then I become friends with Abe and Alex and very good friends with him. I was just did a project with him a couple years ago in Hollywood. So just knowing those guys and hearing their stories and rubbing shoulders with them and making music with them. I've done 3 records with all those guys. So uh, it's still fun today, still
Yeah.
fun to play.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. After all of this time, everyone has a perception of you in your different circles, family,
Mhm.
friends, fans, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your
Mhm.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, wow. Um, well, I mean, professionally, I went into arranging and producing to survive. I couldn't make it as a player. Plus, the first kind of 4 years on the road, I was with a guy named Andre Crouch and the Disciples, a black gospel group in the early '70s. Who great guy, but he was gospel, black gospel, and so we were his band. 4 of us out of this little road band we had, and but that was fun. But I kept having kids. We have 3 kids and now 7 grandkids. So when the kids started to come, you have to say, I need to get off the road. I need to do something else besides, if you're a player, if you're not traveling, you're not making money.
Yeah.
You can make a little bit of money at home, playing clubs and stuff. But so I began to produce and arrange. So professionally, I became known as an arranger and then as a producer of records in the '70s, '80s, '90s, and even now. I also do a little bit of teaching, but that's more on the arranging side of things and what makes a great record, producing kind of things. But also as a Christian, I do teaching. We're going to England in next month to do some teaching in churches and the London School of Theology and things like that. So I do that aspect too, which I love, teaching on what the Bible says about music, says a lot. And it's amazing that there's all this stuff in there about King David, who wrote all these songs, 150 psalms that are actually psalms to be sung. So that's cool, and I love to do that. So um, um, I hope to think I'm a pretty good husband and was a good father. Actually, still am. I'm meeting my son for barbecue today in Austin. Which, if you ever get to Austin, I'm taking you out to barbecue.
Yeah,
Okay?
I hear it's good. I hear it's really
Oh
good.
yeah, oh yeah.
Definitely. Definitely.
So those are just some things that people might say.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one
Hmm.
concert,
Hmm.
where are you going? Who do you want to see?
Oh. To go see a concert. Well, I saw a pretty good concert in London, and I'm trying to think of the jazz guitarist's name, but it'll come to me. Uh, well, I've seen Pat Metheny, mentioned
Okay.
Pat Metheny's name several times,
Yeah.
uh, with his big band in different incarnations of that throughout the decades, from the '90s to the 2000s. Um, gee, I don't know. That stuff. See, I never saw Miles or Coltrane live,
Okay.
so I would love to go back
Yeah.
and be in one of their concerts and just to hear them live. Hearing people sound live, because I tell this to people about studying with people, and teaching online is great, but you need to hear that person sound live. Hearing their sound will change the way you play. It'll change the way of your physiology as well as just, because you get that sound inside you. And I studied the reason I got into Yale was that I was at the Aspen Music Festival that Juilliard put on in 1968. And then there was a guy named Robert Nagel there who had the New York Brass Quintet, and he taught in New York City, and he taught in New Haven at Yale. So he got me in there because I had no reason to be there academically, honestly. Uh, but I had a lesson or two lessons with him for 8 weeks, and just getting his sound, it's like how I'm hearing this sound. I can't do that, and he's playing a passage, and okay, I'm playing this passage, but I just don't play it like he does at all. And I'm a pretty good player. I'm going into my senior year of college. I practice a lot. I play a lot. Play with orchestras, brass quintets, big bands, jazz combos, and everything. But hearing that sound in he's sitting next to me, or in a concert, I'm hearing the sound, and he's portraying that in a different way. However you want to physiologically or in the ambience of the sound coming out of the horn, how he's able to do that, it makes a difference. It really does. It, uh, there's something in that passage that permeates the air, as we know, the airways. And I mean, it's great to have recorded music. That's how we learn music. We mimic other players as we're growing up, and we take that to heart. We sort of become them before we start to veer off onto our own path, and we develop something that becomes our own sound and our own technique and how we do things and what we like, you know. Um, I'm sorry I should have my horns out here, but I had
Yeah,
a
it's
gig
all right.
last night. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think that makes a big difference in listening to players. That's why people in Austin love live music. They still go to venues. They have a lot of big venues that bring artists in from the outside. Austin City Limits, if you've seen that TV show, it's been on. It just had its 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
So it's a great venue here in town, 2,500 seat, beautiful auditorium now that they have a brand new one. But and then they have this festival. It's 2 weekends in October, three days. 250,000 people each weekend. So, like I say, people love music and they will pay for outside groups. They don't much support the local musician, but hopefully that'll change.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Fletch, if anyone wants to get your books, your music, any of the good work that you're doing, they want to dive in and get more, where do they go?
They can go to my website and it'll lead them to it's just www.fletchwiley.com, FLETCHWILEY.com. And my email is just simple, fletch.wiley@gmail.com. But yeah, I mean, I love to talk to people, and we can hang out and talk. But God bless you and what you're doing, Joe.
Thank
And
you.
if you get down here, you need to come give me a call.
Yeah, you're going to be my first call. Absolutely. And I'm going to